All right, Noob D&D Dad here, and this is the one where I almost killed my son's entire party. So stay tuned to see how I almost killed my son's entire party in Axholm in this quest. So it all started when I decided to try and be clever with how they find their way to their next quest. So they had finished the Dwarven Excavation, Nomengard, and Umbridge Hill. And so now it was time to go on to the follow-up quests. And I guess I didn't pay attention to this. After characters complete 2 follow-up quests, another 3 quests are added. Meaning, if they do 2 of these, then these will show up. But I decided, since there's 6 of them, because there's 6 of them, that I would roll a d6 3 times, and that would be the 3 quests that were on the board. Because I knew that this was kind of the end of our session, so that I would have time to prep whatever they chose. So I rolled the 3d6s. One of the choices was Axholm. They read all the other choices, and they decided they wanted to go there. And I was like, great, sounds good. And then as I was prepping for it, I was like, they were only level 3 at the time, and I was like, okay. I was like, this is the biggest dungeon in the whole book. I mean, look at this thing. It's huge. All the squares are just 5 feet. It's 2 levels. Now, I did already talk about their entrance to Axholm, where I decided to have 3 NPCs at the door, and also they got attacked by the dragon on their way there. But I had 3 NPCs camping at the door because it was heavy, freezing cold rain, which also I had them roll a constitution check to see how they could handle the rain. And they didn't roll very well, so they were their muscles were getting stiff, and they weren't doing great, so they really needed to get shelter. But I put 3 NPCs there to possibly be a voice of reason, to be like, you shouldn't go in there. But the problem was I also rolled on the D20 for the dragon, and it ended up in Axholm. So I maybe sealed their fate when I basically had the dragon chase them in there. And again, see my other video explaining the giant spider battle in Axholm, where I go over their dragon encounter at the beginning. Now, I did have a lot of fun creating the ambiance for Axholm, and I'm actually really proud of it. So I had it just be this deathly stinky smell coming out of it, right? Because there's undead ghouls in there, and they're supposed to stink. And also I had screams being heard in there, and just various clunking and chinking and various noises. And one thing that once they actually got in, once they got inside and started dungeon crawling or Castle Axholm crawling, there's a few things I did with the atmosphere that really creeped them out. So I still had moaning and groaning noises from the ghouls off in the distance, and echoes and scary noises. But I decided to describe the way that air fills in there, that it wasn't a constant moving air, and it also wasn't still. It was this uneven air. It's almost like the air itself was unsettled, that it would move a little bit and then stop and move a little bit. Not even it's breathing in and out or anything, just that it's this inconsistent airflow. And that creeped them out, and I loved it. I always feel good when I creep them out. And another thing I did is there's occasional time where it would be completely silent, no sounds at all, and that also creeped them out. But the more I read about Axholm and the more I prepared for Axholm, the more I was like, oh no, I'm going to kill my son. And I was talking to my wife, and she's like, well, maybe you can have somebody warn them and they don't go there. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still their choice. So I did a little bit of meta with my friend, and I was like, look, this could be really rough here. And so he got it in his head that they were going to kind of be careful, basically. So what his plan was that they would do lots of long rests. So they would make their way in. So this is the entrance, right? So they have to deal with the portcullis, which my son just used a magic spell on. And then they made their way through here. And then once they got in here, they would go room to room very cautiously. And then once they found a good room where they could kind of stop for the night, they would do a long rest and regain all their hit points. And my friend keeps saying D&D 5e is very soft, and maybe it is. but they would take a long rest, and then sometimes that would be the end of our session, so they'd have to come back next week, right? But they go out and they fight ghouls and they fight those big mosquito things that were very, very gross. And then they go do a long rest. And so they're determined to do their objective, which is to clear the whole castle. And like I mentioned in another video, it's no longer just a place where they can seek refuge from the dragon. It's now a place where, in addition to seeking refuge from the dragon, it's now an overflow for Phandalin, because Phandalin is full of refugees because the volcano that went off that I added to the campaign. So it's very important that they clear all the rooms out. So they're going room by room and they're stopping a lot. So I think this has actually been good. And I think I may have actually added even more creatures than are in the book because they keep resting. I was like, hey, let's keep going. So it's been fun hiding ghouls all over this place. Like, you've seen the map. Like, there's a lot of places that you can put stuff. Also, the book, this book is really nice because it just tells you where to put everything. So you could just follow that. But there's so many places to put things, and some of the ghouls, I have them just like burst out of doors and just be like, like kind of doing the teeth on teeth, just like trying to bite them and stuff. And others of the ghouls are just kind of like, like kind of like zombie mummy-ish. And there's this one ghoul that I'm really proud of, where they were in this big room with 2 fireplaces in it that they were kind of decide to stay there for a night. It's like the barracks room. And they were all gathered around the fireplace, just like poking it with their like extendo stick to see if they could clear out the rubble so that they could have a fireplace so they could stay in this room, right? And they left the door open. And so I just have this ghoul like wander in and just like stand next to them and like also look up the fireplace. So it kind of came in by itself, and then they like attacked it and killed it and stuff. But I just, they thought that was pretty funny. Also, so that's this room, and they stayed there for a night. But if you'll direct your attention to A8, it's the privies. So this toilet zombie kill, spoiler alert, I put one on the toilet, made its way into our Christmas newsletter this year. And I show you a quote. Recently playing D&D with his daddy, he enjoys recounting how the monsters died to his mama, which leads to her asking questions like, "Daddy, had you kill a monster who was on the toilet?" Followed by riotous boy laughter. I'm so very proud of that. So I had them open the door, and there's a ghoul right on the toilet. And of course, now at this point, they're traumatized. So every time they open a door, they open it with like all of them in formation with their crossbows and like their little spell hands ready. And so they open the door, and this ghoul's like, "Mah!" on the toilet. And they all shoot it, and it just like breaks apart, and it just like its pieces just like fall into the toilet. Okay, some of the other ghoul things that I'm very proud of. So this campaign with my son, it's designed to be kid-friendly, right? Or at least mostly kid-friendly. He's 8 years old. So instead of the ghouls as portrayed in the book, where they look a little more juicy, some of the artwork has them like a lot of juicy stuff. So really, I think the kills would be very gory. I turned these ghouls more into like mummies from like the 1999 Mummy, like where they like crumble and dust, and they might have like some soft tissue still, but mostly they like crumble and dust when they die, right? So like I'll have them bite them, and if their roll fails, like the I want to say zombie, but if their roll fails to bite, then I have like some of their teeth break off on them. And there was one really, really gross one that I was very proud of, but like something happened where the ghoul fell down, and the guy like hit it, and it chopped its jaw off. It like broke its jaw off. And so when it got up to keep fighting, it only had like one tooth left, and it had like a tongue, and there was no jaw. And so it was just like, like the tongue was just like wagging all over, making this really gross sound. And every time I did that, like, my friend at the table was just like, ugh. So it has a bite and claws, and it has this thing where you get paralyzed for a minute if something happens to you. And I was really proud of myself with how I like visually portrayed that. So they get scratched, and then if they handle the DC, the saving throw, basically like they hear their pulse in their ears, and their vision starts getting darker and darker, and it's like boom, 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 boom. But then if they pass the saving throw, then it like opens back up and the hearing goes back to normal because it's like they're about to be paralyzed. So I thought that was kind of a cool descriptor for that. Okay, so seriously, they've spent 5 sessions in Axol, and I went in detail on the spider battle, and so this battle that I'm going to describe now is the next session after the spider battle. All right, quick note. These little things, these are ballistas, okay? And they can be moved. There's ballistas all over the place. And I keep telling the party, I keep being like, you guys, not like that, not like I'm like teaching them a lesson, but I keep being like, oh yeah, and there's 7 ballistas in this room, and they're on wheels, and they have ammo. You know, I'm just trying to be like, here they are. You can use them. So they are just making their way through Axol, and weirdly, they're avoiding the throne room and the upstairs hallway. The throne room is where like the big daddy ghoul is, and the upstairs hallway is where the Banshee is. So they're working room by room by room, and you know they're fighting ghouls and they're getting injured. You know, like they're not coming out unscathed. And a couple of things I have them find is I have them find that's not in the book. I have them find a hand axe because I think they're proficient with that. And also, I described a 6-foot piece of chain. I'm just like, this room has a 6-foot piece of chain in it. It's a little bit rusty, but very intact. And so they kept it, and I'm like, okay, cool. And so they've been like trying to find uses for it. So I thought that was interesting to just put it. So in addition to doing like morally ambiguous decisions, I also like to be like, here's this object. Like, does this interest you? Are you going to do anything with it? Okay, so finally, they make their way through here. But first, they stop in this room. And my friend rolls a natural 20 on investigation. And this room in the book is described as empty. But I was like, you know what? It's time. Like, you guys, I really haven't given them much. So I was like, okay, so natural 20. I was like, you notice there's a like rectangle, like possible secret outline on the wall. And so he tries to start messing with it. And eventually he just pushes and it goes in about 2 inches and stops. And then I'm just doing it like that. I'm like, okay, what are you going to do now? And so then eventually he slides it, and it pushes back and then slides over, and it reveals a 2 feet deep, 2 feet wide, 1 feet tall little place. And like, no kidding, as I was describing this, I was like, I don't know what's in here. I don't know what I'm going to put in here. But here's what I decided because of, again, I don't remember the name, sorry, but one of the people in the comments said that I shouldn't overdo it, I shouldn't get overexcited, and maybe I should include a potion every now and then. And I was like, you know what? It's potion time. So I have there be like this old leather wrap, just kind of like flop, just in there, and that's the only thing that's in this whole little secret compartment. So he opens it up, and it is a red liquid that when you kind of shake it, it kind of glows, right? So it's a healing potion. And I wanted it to be kind of a special find, so I have it be a potion of greater healing, which I found in the DM guide. Okay, so then they make their way around here, and it's like stinking more and more as they come over here, and then this place is all full of ghouls, and they dispatch them, and it's very cool. And one of like the finishing kills of one of them, again, like they're very dusty ghouls, right? I think he did like a witch bolt or something. I can't remember, but he like zaps it, and I had it just because this is like the finishing move, right? So I have it just like explode into like shards of bone and dust, and I describe it as like going down their shirts and just like getting on everything. So as from here on out, I'm talking, when I'm describing anything, I'm like, there's like the bone fragments are like itching down your clothes and stuff. So I'm just trying to just paint like just this like slog where the environment is literally like getting on them. And so I was very proud of myself for the bone fragments down the clothes thing. Okay, so that's this room, and it has like, it's like a religious, it's a ghoul den, and it has like religious stuff. So they get a little bit of treasure there. Potion of superior healing. So anyway, that's pretty cool. Little religious ghoul den. And then they go up these stairs, and right as the whole party is right here, coming down this hallway, I have her just slide out sideways. The Banshee herself. She just slides out like floating, and she's like blue and white, and her hair's everywhere, and she's like very pretty. And then just like Ghostbusters 1, I have her face get like scary and evil looking, and she screams this deathly scream that's like, she says, "Get out of my house!" And that terrifies them. So I have them roll initiative, and the Banshee gets higher than everybody. And so the book tells you for her first attack to do this. Look at her. There she is. It tells you to do her horrifying visage. So these guys all do this horrifying visage, like Constitution saving throw. And because there's the dad and his two sons, right? And then those are NPCs that are joined them. And then there's my son and my friend. And two of the NPCs become frightened. They're just like, ah! And also, the three basically veteran fighters, where they just have like swords and crossbows, they can't even do anything. And so we'll get this in a minute. So now it's basically my son and my friend that are a sorcerer, or a wizard and a sorcerer, that have to fight this thing. So they get a couple shots off, a couple cool little zaps. But then when it's her turn, she's going to use wail, and then she's going to retreat. But I'm also really proud of how I described when they're using their magic on her. So they do like I don't know the names of these things. It's like a little ball of, you choose which element and you blast it at it. And then anyway, they're level 4. So whatever wizards and sorcerers do. So every time they blast it, like her light gets dimmer, and you can see like if they zapped a certain part of her, like that part would go like orangey red, and her overall light would get dimmer. And so she had this like mocking attitude at first, like, "You're in my place, I'm gonna kill all of you." But then as she's getting hit with this magic and it's actually doing damage, like she starts getting this like confused and like even more rage. And then I have her do the wail, which is like this deathly scream where she's like mad and sad and just like screaming at the ceiling. And I have it send out like this shockwave and everything. And then the results of the wail happen, and it is nasty. And I maybe cheated a little bit in favor of their party because I have a mandate from my wife to not kill my son on his first thing. But watch this. Okay, wail. The Banshee releases a mournful wail, provided that she isn't in sunlight. This wail has no effect on constructs and undead. All other creatures within 30 feet of her can hear her, must make a DC 13 Constitution saving throw. On a failure, a creature drops to 0 hit points. On a success, takes 10 3d6 psychic damage. Okay, there's 5 people in the party. They all fail their rolls. I keep letting my son, I let my son have multiple rolls. All the NPCs, they're just dropping. So they're dropping to 0 hit points and going unconscious. I'm just like, oh no, they're all going to be like, I was like, this is going to be, this is going to be so bad. And my son's like getting so worried, and he's just like, "Can I roll again?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I gave you inspiration because you guys did really well back there. So roll again." And he rolls again, and just, he's getting like 2s and 3s, and he's been rolling like natural 20s, which is why like all the death animations have been like so epic. And he's getting like 2s and 3s on these saving throws. I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's so bad. And he fails his 3rd one, and then my friend, so he rolls and it just fails miserably. He's like, "Oh, let's just say that was for one of the NPCs." And I'm just like really? Anyway, what happens is I let him roll again, and anyway, he finally passes. So the whole party is on the ground, unconscious, 0 hit points. So yeah, I fudged it a little bit so that my son, well, I mean, I did let him go. My son went to 0 hit points, and he was not happy. And I think and it was getting late too, so I think he was getting affected by like the scariness of the Banshee. But yeah, so you have the party all unconscious, all on the ground. But I was like, we got to have one person left, because one person can, go around and start helping people. Anyway, so he shoves the healing potion into my son's mouth, like lifts him up, plugs his nose, does whatever the thing you do to make someone take a potion, and it works, right? So my son's 0 hit point unconsciousness was pretty short lived, but now the Banshee went off down the hall, and I described it going down the hall as it leaves the light. You see the light getting dimmer and dimmer, and then it just cuts off because it just turns left and goes through the wall into its bedroom. And I love watching them deal with this conundrum. They're like, we've got 3 bodies on the floor and they're unconscious. We got to stabilize these. Also, this Banshee just went down the hall. And I'm just sitting there watching, like, what are you guys going to do? Are you going to... Here's what I didn't want them to do. I didn't want them to be like, all right, we better all recover and, we'll be back tomorrow. I really wanted them to chase it down. And my friend's like, we've already done some damage. They had done 34 damage on this thing. And he's like, we've done some damage. If we don't go get her now, like, she's just going to get strong again. And I was like, yes. So they basically, like, stabilize these guys. They, like, drag them over into this other area that only has one way in and one way out. And they put blankets over them, right? So they're, like, in disguise, unconscious. They're like, do you think they'll be okay alone? And I'm like... Anyway, so they drag them over to this balcony area. They leave them there unconscious, under blankets. And they give one guy like 4 hit points, and they give him the magical crossbow, right? So now you have 3 people with magical things that can go get her. And they run up to the first door, and they listen to it, and it's all like, raw, and they're like, nope. It's full of ghouls, right? So then they go to the next door down the hall, and they listen at the door, and she yells again, get out of my house! And my friend yells back, get out of our house! So they kick down the door, and she's in there, and she's just like, she's so mad. And they all roll initiative. She gets a 20, and they get not that. And this is where... So I had already kind of fudged it a little bit, right? So that one of the 5 could pass the saving throw. And so I have her go for the NPC, right? So she goes up to do the grab thing, which is like an insane amount of damage. And I roll, and it's a natural 20. And I'm like, this guy's gonna die. He's gonna die. And I sit there, and I'm just like, these guys are just gonna get walked over. And I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna reroll, right? Because I have the screen. So I reroll, and it's like a 12. And so I start describing it, and I'm like, she goes to grab, and she like misses, and he dodges it. And then I'm just like sitting there, and I'm like, this is an NPC. Like, this is the time to show the cost of fighting a freaking Banshee. So I'm like, no, actually, she grabs him and does a ton of damage. Yeah, here's the damage. +4 to hit. 3d6 plus 2 necrotic damage. Also, she's at 58, and they've done... Or she has 58, and they've done 34. And this guy's only at 4 hit points, and I have him at 30 hit points. So I roll, and it's huge. It's not max, and he gets down to like -21. And I paused, and I was like, oh crap, is this instant death? And I read the instant death section, and it sounds like the only time a negative number matters in 5e, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, is on that instant death check. If you go all the way up to their hit point max. So if I went to -30, then the light of his life is snuffed out. And but he went to like -21. And so I was reading, and I couldn't ever find anywhere where it brings up again a negative number, and that you have to bring them from negative. So anyway, he's zeroed out. He's destroyed on the ground, about to die. And it's left to these last 2 guys, and they do their best. And honestly, from 34 damage up to 58, it's not too big of a thing with the weapons they have. And they do some gnarly weapons on her. They do this it's like a ball of an element that they shoot at it, and then he's got like his witch bolt. And finally, they kill the thing, and its light goes all the way out, and it's like screams, and then it just kind of explodes, and I have this shockwave go through everything, and then it just seems a little nicer in there. So they defeated the Banshee after almost being totally killed themselves, and now they have to get about the business of recovering. So now they are trying to heal, administer potions, drag bodies, get people comfortable, find a nice place to stay. And I sat there for a minute being like, because there's still some more ghouls, right? There's the big bad ghoul that has like the magic item. I'm like, are all the ghouls going to die because she died? And I was like, nah, nah, they still have to fight everything else that they haven't seen yet. But yeah, so then they set about trying to find a room to go sleep in to protect these guys. So we're reading the rules and trying to figure out how they do like a short, or they heal them. They get a hit point after so many hours pass by. Then once they have a hit point, then they can do like a short rest. Anyway, they get secured and take their rest. My son has to use what's it called, hit dice to regain some hit points. So as a noob D&D DM, dadgum DM dad, I feel like I did a pretty good job of making them feel like there was stakes, like very serious stakes, but also still having fun and having like a cathartic victory. And they really, really felt, I could tell that they felt like a cathartic victory when they destroyed that Banshee. And they were proud of themselves because they knew they were over their heads with the whole quest. And I'm proud of them too. I thought it was really, really cool. And I can't wait to wreck the military veterans group with the Banshee. It's going to be great. I can't wait to unleash the spiders on them, the Banshee. They get down, those guys get down to 0 hit points a lot. So anyway, all right. I don't know what else I'm forgetting, but it was so fun. And now, so then they had to go to bed, right? So now they have to fight the big bad ghoul. They've got to recharge and do some other things, but that Banshee fight was so cool, and I was so worried. I was so worried that I was gonna kill all of them. They were all gonna get to 0, and then some ghouls were gonna come around the corner and just munch on all their heads. Obviously I can control it, right? The wife's like, "Don't kill your son," but at the same time, I'm like, "Hey, if he walks into a Banshee's area, like, might die." All right, thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear your opinion on this, and I've really, really enjoyed all the comments and the interaction. It's been incredible. So thank you for that, and please continue to do that. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one.